going to happen. What I was going to do was talk about adolescents and alcohol, which is obviously what our day is about. But before we're going to start, I'm just going to give you a little hint of what public health is like. Normally what happens is when you go to the movie, before you see the main feature, you get the trailers. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to do that. So public health is about the steady and practicing of safeguarding and improving the health of communities as a whole. Okay, so there are some things that we do on an individual basis, but generally that's not what we're about. Okay, so we have, for example, Team Clinic, where we are seeing people one-on-one in partnership with the schools, but that's not really the public health thing. We're not providing family planning. What we're really trying to do is reduce the teen pregnancy rate, which is an important thing for all of us. Okay. So we manage disease and health through society-wide measures. They're considered 10 essential services that the public health departments do, but breaking them down, what happens is break them down into 4. Basically, we prevent us from getting sick or hurt. So, for example, drinking and driving laws are designed to prevent us from getting sick and hurt. They help us to understand how to improve our health, so we provide information. They help to keep our environment safe, and there's a number of things that we do that are involved with that. And then finally, we do try to make sure that the health care that's available is quality health care, and also that people can access it. Now that's a tough thing to do in the society we have because we have very little resources, in fact. Now, public health is not just the health department, okay? So there's multiple partners, practically any agency or group you can think of. So the schools are a partner, the police are a partner, faith-based groups are partners, Piedmont Community Services, social services, all of these. I mean, it's a big group of people and organizations that are involved in public health. Now, the Virginia Department of Health, and when you think of the local health department, we are actually part of the Virginia Department of Health. And it was created in response to widespread tuberculosis back in 1908. Okay, so it doesn't go back forever, but 1908. And at that time, they had 4 employees, and their budget was $4,000 per year. Now, we're looking at somewhere around 4,000 employees. That's probably gone down because, layoffs and all that stuff. And a budget somehow of just over $500 million. So, it's a tremendous difference, the agency between then and now. Now, what happens is that there's a saying that says, if you look at one health department, you've seen one health department. They're all different. They're different in different states. They're set up differently. Virginia has a very centralized system. So what happens is, prior to 1947, each community had their own health department, and they basically did whatever they wanted. And a lot of people thought, well, this isn't very smart, it's not very sensible. And some of the things that we think is really essential to do, aren't being done. So what happened was the General Assembly, and some of the things they do perhaps aren't the wisest, but I think this was a really good thing. Basically what they did was they approached everyone. They said, what happens is we're willing to enter into a partnership with you. And we've got 3 options. Okay, one is that you don't have to enter into a partnership, so you can just continue to run your health department the way you want. 2 is that we will take over your health department. You give us some money, we'll put in a bigger chunk of money, and what we'll do is we'll run this together, and we'll set the standards, and we'll provide the management and all that kind of stuff. And then the 3rd option was sort of the same but different. It was the locality continues to own the health department. And what happens is that the state provides some leadership, some parameters, and a whole bunch of money. And so what happened was that, this is now a statewide issue. I think in the 70s, Henrico was the last one to come into the system. And so there are now 35 health districts. We're in the West Piedmont Health District, which I'll talk to you about what that means. What happens is there's only 2 of them that are locality owned. Okay, the rest are all state agencies. So in those localities, the director is employed by the locality. In this one, I'm employed by the state. Okay. Now, what happens is the Virginia Department of Health has a mission, which is to promote and protect the health of Virginians. It also has a vision, which is to have healthy people living in healthy communities. The way things are set up, we have the governor who appoints the Secretary of Health and Human Resources. He then, and along with the governor, appoint the Virginia State Board of Health. The Virginia State Board of Health is made up of a lot of different stakeholders. So there's a physician representative, pharmacy representative, hospital representative, consumer representative, and it goes on. And what happens is, among the State Board of Health, the Secretary of Health, and the governor, what they do is that they interact with the health department. Now, the health department's commissioner, which is the big boss, is appointed by the governor on the recommendation of the Secretary of Health. And basically the commissioner functions at the pleasure of the governor, which means that very often when there's a changeover in the governor, that then they change the commissioner of health. The current commissioner is Karen Remley, who was appointed by Kim Kane, but McDonald has kept her in place. Now, the Virginia Department of Health, again, when people think about it, what they do is they think about the health department. But in fact, what happens is we are just one small agency. So there's an Office of Epidemiology, the Office of Family Health Services, Environmental Health Services, Drinking Water, Minority Health and Health Equity, Emergency Preparedness, Licensure and Certification, the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner as part of the Department of Health, the Office of Risk Communications and Education, and the Office of Community Health Services, which is what we do. So we're a collaboration. The local West Piedmont Health District is a collaboration of the community of Virginia, or the Commonwealth of Virginia, the City of Martinsville, Henry County, Paac County, Franklin County. Our funding comes from 4 sources. It comes from general fund revenues from the state. It comes from local revenues from the municipality. We have grants. For example, the WIC program is one of our big grants, and that's a federal program. And then finally, there's certain things that we charge for, so we do raise some fees. We deal with about 140,000 people. We have 57 full-time equivalents, and our budget's in around $4 million. It used to be bigger. We have 3 offices. So we've got the one that you're probably familiar with on Commonwealth Boulevard, but we also have one in Rocky Mount and in Stewart. From a clinical services point of view, we do vital statistics. When the death certificates are signed, they come to us. We look after them. We do some health education, some OSHA training. We do immunizations, both adult and childhood, and also travel assessments and immunization. So, if you're going to Valley or someplace, come and talk to us, and we'll talk to you about what are the risks and what immunizations you need. We do HIV testing. The health department is involved with a program called ADAP, which is the AIDS Drug Assistance Program. That's a tough program these days because these drugs are very expensive and they're not funded. Thank you, President. You want to plug into mine?
Figures, this is just about fixed.
You think so?
Yeah.
I like it when you have just about fixed. If that's. deal with tuberculosis, sexually transmitted illnesses or infections. We do some family planning. We have some programs called Every Woman's Life and Wise Woman, which provides services to women who do not have the resources to get pap smears and mammograms. There's a car seat program for people who qualify financially. We actually will give them car seats and we will show them how to install it and use them correctly. There's a program called MIC, which involves visiting the homes of high-risk pregnant women and after they deliver the children, and providing risk abatement services to them. We do some school health, newborn screening, and we do some child specialty services where we're trying to coordinate care for children who have multiple illnesses. We have an environmental health division, and what they do is they do well inspections and permits, sewage permits, drinking water information, restaurant inspections and permits. They're involved with rabies control. We also look after dairies, daycare centers, homes for the aged, trailer parks, migrant labor camps, summer camps, marinas, and public swimming pools. And then finally, what do you think? And then finally, we have an Office of Emergency Preparedness and Response. And let's see if we can just get this running and then I'll
That's a good thing.
you want to look at my emails? No, you're right. It's a mess. Actually, I'm going to Okay, so what we're going to do is talk a little bit about alcohol. I'm curious, has anyone ever taken a organic chemistry course? Wine? No, I said one. Okay. Let me see if I can figure it out.
I thought why afterwards.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting. Anyway, what happens is, how do we go back? So anyway, alcohol is a word that entered the English language around the 16th century. It actually, funnily enough, comes from the Arabic languages, even though they don't drink, or say they don't drink. So it's a chemical term. And what happens is when you look at chemicals, if you have a chemical that has what's called a hydroxy group, so an OH, oxygen and hydrogen, remember? What happens is that is an alcohol, okay? So what happens is there's a fairly standard formula for the sort of simple alcohols. With C, which is the number of carbons, whatever H is hydrogen, and there's 2 plus 1 of them, and then the oxygen, and the hydroxy group. So, alcohol is a generic term. And what happens is you can see, this is just a few little alcohols, okay? You're probably familiar with methanol or wood alcohol, okay? So that is an alcohol. It's not what you want to drink, because if you do, you will go blind. It's breakdown products or something that will kill your the retina and the optic artery The one we drink is this one. So it's ethyl alcohol or grain alcohol. And as you know, that's also the ones they talk about, driving cars and things like that. Isopropyl alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Okay, we don't really want to drink that one. And then just for fun, I've included ethylene glycol. It actually has 2 hydroxyl molecules, so it's not really an alcohol. I mean, it's a glycol. But there have been situations where people have drunk in ethanol, or ethylene glycol. So, as I say, alcohol, is something that's being consumed forever. Okay, the reasons are hygienic, dietary, medicinal, religious, and recreational reasons. And even though it's illegal for people 20 and under to purchase or drive with alcohol, it is legal for them to drink alcohol at home, and it's also legal to have it in church. So for example, if you're going for communion, you can, someone can drink the wine. Okay? Consumptions of large doses, we all know about that, lead to intoxication, it can wear off, it can impair our judgment. You can't kill yourself with alcohol. Most times, when people kill themselves, they drink and drive and do something stupid, or they drink, become unconscious, and aspirate and die. But you can actually just take so much alcohol that you can't die. So as I said, it's one of the most widely used substances in the world. Alcohol use in binge drinking is a major public health issue. It's used by more young people in the United States than tobacco or illicit drugs. I mean, you can get all these statistics today, and I don't really want to, belabor them too much. But they're saying that excessive alcohol, 75,000 deaths per year, is approximately involved in approximately 41% of all deaths from motor vehicle accidents. Among youth, the use of alcohol and other drugs is being linked to unintentional injuries, physical fights, academic and occupational problems, and illegal behavior. Long-term alcohol use is associated with lung disease, liver disease, cancer, cardiovascular disease, neurologic damage, and it's associated with psychiatric issues such as depression, anxiety, antisocial personality. Now, whether it's the cause of those things is another question, because what happens is people generally want to feel well, and so often what we do is that we self-medicate. So if I'm anxious and all that kind of stuff, or I have chronic pain, what I may do is drink alcohol in order to numb those things. It's also involved with morbidity and mortality. I think you all heard of fetal alcohol syndrome. So it does affect every organ in the body, and it's a central nervous system depressant. So Pat Favero, gave a very good talk on the brain today, and he had some pictures of caffeine and nicotine and cocaine and how they affect the brain. Those are stimulants. So in fact, for people who are sort of sluggish and can't get going, those are things that will make them feel better. Alcohol is not a stimulant, it's depression. Now the liver is the only place that is metabolized in the body, but it can only metabolize a small amount, and that's why it accumulates. And that's also why, when you stop drinking, it takes time for your body to clear that. And the effects that it has, depend on a lot of things, including, what's your, physical body type, or experienced drinker, all those kinds of things. So we talk about the acute effects versus chronic effects. And what happens is the acute effects will happen at different blood alcohol levels, but we use them as an approximate measure as to how how to gauge the effects. And what happens is, as I said earlier, tolerance and individual response varies. So, the last speaker was talking about this young lady, unfortunate young lady who died with a blood alcohol level over 4. But I can think of one of my patients over the years who routinely had blood alcohol levels over 4. And I wouldn't say was well, but was nowhere near to the point of dying with that. But that person was a very experienced drinker. So what happens is that at low blood alcohol levels, people will may notice improvements in mood, possible euphoria, some increased self-confidence, sociability, these kinds of things. Now, there's also a shortened attention span, impaired judgment, and impaired fine muscle coordination. The interesting things we all know about alcohol is that you don't really notice those things. You think that you are the best, right? Sedation at higher blood alcohol levels. So as we know, 0.08 is the legal limit, 0.09 to up to 0.25. Sedation, impaired memory, comprehension, delayed reactions, balance difficulties, problems with your senses. Above that, 0.18 up to 0.3, confusion, emotional lability, impaired senses, analgesia. You'll hear people, they come in the day after and say, I broke my hand and I don't remember doing it, and, all these kinds of things. Staggering, speech issues, dizziness, and vomiting. And that can be related to the alcohol itself, or it can be related to to other things, dehydration, chemical or electrolyte imbalances, those kinds of things. And blood alcohol levels from 0.25 up to 0.4, severe ataxia, decreased heart rate, blacking out. People say, I don't remember anything of the party that I went to last night. Vomiting, death. I think that aside from motor vehicle accidents, that's the thing that I'm aware of most is people vomiting. They're so they've got so much alcohol in the system that their gag reflex isn't anesthetized. And so what they do is they vomit, they aspirate, and they die. And that's probably the most common way for people to die, other than motor vehicle accidents. And then finally, we've got unconsciousness and the respiratory depression, which is one of the side effects of high doses. Going above that, I've never seen someone with a blood alcohol level of 0.50. Anyway, unconsciousness, depressed reflexes, and when I talk about that, I don't mean that they're not fast. I mean that they're you can poke them with a needle, you can do all sorts of things, and they don't respond to that at all. And obviously this is a life-threatening situation for these people. So why do people act differently to alcohol, respond differently? Well, it's a variety of things. Age will make a difference, the gender will make a difference, race and ethnicity, physical conditions, weight, fitness levels, amount of food consumed before drinking, how quickly the alcohol was consumed, use of drugs or other prescriptions. What happens is people who use, for example, benzodiazepines, which is, Xanax, Valium, those kinds of things, often require, they've sort of activated their, the enzymes in their liver, and they clear more, alcohol more quickly. And as a result, they require higher doses of these things in order to, get the same effect. On the other hand, I've seen people in the hospital, I've done endoscopies, and on alcoholics, and you can give them almost a pound of the drugs that we use for acetaminophen, and they just they're wide awake. So it's a very interesting thing. And then finally, family history is also something that's important. So no two people process at the same rate, and that's why I used to have a patient who was in Canada. I remember one day he came in very candidly. He said, I'm not drinking at all. I said, tell me why. He said, I drink 4 cases, 24 beer a weekend by myself. So that's 96 cans of beer. And Canadian beer is a little stronger than U.S. beer is. I was kind of thinking, could you even put 96 cans of anything into you over a 48-hour period? I couldn't. But anyway, it's funny, a lot of people drink are big. This was a little skinny guy, and, I don't know what to say. He never seemed impaired, but he obviously was right. He had a problem. So the presence of food in the stomach decreases the rate of absorption. If you're fasting, if your stomach is empty, you're going to get the alcohol in your system more quickly. If you dilute it with water and juices, that's going to slow the absorption. And interesting, carbonated beverages increase it. And again, that's an issue with those alcohol pops that we were just learning about. Body weight and composition makes a difference. What you want to do is, if you don't want the effect, you want to dilute it. And so if you can spread it around your body, that's going to dilute the blood alcohol level. So generally, if you're larger, you're going to dilute it. If you have a larger blood volume, if you carry less body fat doesn't really seem to help that much because alcohol doesn't get absorbed into that. And then finally, as we said earlier, it's broken down by the liver. And so if you have more of this alcohol metabolizing enzyme, and that could be genetic, but you can train. You go to the gym and get big arms on you. If you drink enough alcohol, you will, activate your liver and you can break down alcohol very quickly. And then, so what happens is increased drinking gives you increased tolerance. So drink, we talk about an ounce or an ounce and a quarter shot of whiskey, 5 ounces of wine, equal to 12 ounces of beer as being the average drink. We heard earlier that about the caffeine and alcoholic beverages, so I'm not going to stop there. Let's just keep moving. That is a little bit of an eye-opener to me, how big those cans have gotten and what the percentage of alcohol in them is. So heavy drinking, we're saying 2 drinks per day for the typical male. Women, generally are smaller, have less lean muscle mass, all that kind of stuff. For heavy drinking, it's a drink a day, all the time. Binge drinking, again, we got those those numbers earlier today. I don't think I have a lot more to add to that. And then, we talked about with those, running through what I said earlier with the different levels of blood alcohol concentration, acute alcohol poisoning. And, I remember when I was in high school, we met a fellow, one of our classmates that he couldn't chug, and this was, a different era, but the half bottles. But he used to call them Mickeys, I don't know what you call the 13-ounce bottles. Is that a Mickey? Do you use that term down here?
Mickey's Big Mouth.
Mickey's a big one? Okay.
No, it was Big Mouth. It had a mouth on it about like that.
Okay, well, in Canada, the Mickey was the little sort of, he had flasks on it. It was 13 ounces. Anyway, he had acute alcohol poisoning. We didn't know. We were a pretty innocent kid. We just didn't know it. And he got really quite sick. Fortunately, he, went fine. And, he's an adult and professional and all that kind of stuff. So what happens is once alcohol abuse, once a pattern of drinking that results in harm to your health, your interpersonal relationships, and your ability to work. Okay. Again, I'm probably not telling you anything that that you don't already know. So, what we've got is failure to fill major responsibilities at work, school, or at home, drinking in dangerous situations, legal issues related to it, continued drinking despite ongoing problems, relationship issues, work issues, whatever. And then we can talk about alcohol dependence, which is a physical habituation to the alcohol. Now, long-term coronary vascular disease, hypertension, coronary artery disease, stroke. And strokes can be both what they call ischemic, meaning that you plug the blood vessels to your brain, or they can be hemorrhagic, meaning that you don't make enough clotting factors, and what you've done is you've bled into your head. Even though a lot of the books talk about the ischemic ones being more common, my experience has been that the hemorrhagic ones are more common. From a gastrointestinal point of view, you can malabsorb things. A lot of people who are regular drinkers, what they do is that they're deficient in certain nutrients, and then they have the consequences of those. And one of the first things we often do if people come in who are have high blood alcohol levels is we give them what we used to call a banana bag, which is is a bag of IV fluids that have multivitamins in it, and minerals and thiamine and all this kind of stuff. Pancreatitis is a very common alcoholic. When someone comes in with pancreatitis, the first thing we do is ask them to be drinking. You can have an acute one, and then if you do it frequently enough, you can actually permanently damage your pancreas. Alcoholic liver disease can, the full range of that all the way to cirrhosis. Normally, a liver is like a sponge and allows the blood to flow through very easily. But if you get cirrhosis, you have a scarred liver, and what happens is the blood backs up, it can't go through there, the poisons can't come out, and basically it's a terminal illness unless you get a liver transplant. Most places will not transplant anyone who is still drinking, which is perfectly reasonable to me. Injuries, violence, alcohol, fetal alcohol syndrome, and then cancer of the mouth, throat, esophagus, liver, colon, respiratory system, breast, and ovaries are all common with long-term alcohol. Neurologically, psychologically, there are a lot of disorders associated with heavy alcohol use. Now, as we said earlier, does that mean it caused it, or does that mean they had it and they were trying to self-medicate with these drugs? That's a really good question, and I think probably, a lot of these pure psychiatric disorders, I think people are trying to self-medicate. You do see people who've been drinking a long time who develop gait disorders. They can't walk properly. What other things? Women are more vulnerable than men to the damaging effects of excessive alcohol. So they don't have to drink as long, and they don't have to drink as much to end up with complications. We talked earlier about binge drinking. It's a risk factor for sexual assault. And they're estimating that 1 in 20 college women are sexually assaulted every year. Alcohol intake by either the perpetrator, the victim, or both is one of the big risk factors for that. We've talked about the minimum legal drinking age, and that is a wonderful example of public health at work. Okay, so it's a health policy change. And the way it was done was the feds decided to do it, and some of the things the feds do, I guess we can all debate whether it's a good idea. But what they did was they held the purse strings for the interstates, and they said, listen, if you want to get the funding that you're getting, what you need to do is institute some sort of laws. If you don't, we will reduce your funding by, I think it was 10%, but maybe 20%. The other thing is it's given us a before and after date to compare studies and things like that. So being above the legal limit, again, we've already been through this, but subject to certain legal penalties. We test with either a breathalyzer or more reliably a blood alcohol level, which involves drawing blood. The legal limits are defined by the law. It's a state law, but generally all the states have the same policy. And then as we all know, under 21, no level of alcohol is considered legal. The other thing is that even though the blood alcohol level of 0.08 is or below is considered legal, that doesn't mean you're not impaired. The Virginia Department of Alcoholic and Beverage Control has the zero tolerance law, which we talked about. It also discusses fake IDs, and the penalties can be fairly high. So something to think about. One state has linked alcohol to 1 in every 25 deaths worldwide, and 5% of years lived with disability are contributed to alcohol consumption. So talking about adolescence, now as we're talking about alcohol, adolescence, and we'll try and put them all together. It's a time of transition. It can be confusing, difficult. I can think back of my time as an adolescent. Think of some of the decisions I made that were rather strange looking back on them. I always told my own children I wanted to make mistakes. I think we learn from mistakes, but I didn't have a car accident, fly out of the car, become paralyzed, dead, they would want them to be involved in making babies, those kinds of things. But, you know, some mistakes, I think, you know, we probably have to learn. Some of those lessons, for me at least, they're, you know, they stuck with me. So the body is going to change its brain development or hormonal alterations. The other thing that happens, you move from middle school to high school, you change your friends, you move beyond the, you know, your childhood context. There's increased peer pressure and fitting in and all these kinds of things that you know all about already. Dr. Favero talked about you know, developmental changes in the adolescent brain, and is it particularly vulnerable to the effects of alcohol? The problem is that you can't really do brain biopsies on teenagers, although sometimes it can be so nice to do that. So what happens is, you know, most of the actual results we have, you know, aside from the PET scans and the MRIs, are done on animal studies. And so we have to infer from those what that means. And as Dr. Favero talked earlier, you know, the two things that we talk about the most, one is the limbic area, which is this red one here, and that's the one that regulates emotions and pleasure, and it's got to do with novelty and sensation seeking and you know, trying to get those good feelings, those adrenaline rushes and things like that. And it's probably associated with adolescents' lower sensitivity to risk. So what happens is, you know, when we look at things, often we look at them and say, you know, how can this hurt me? But they may not see that. And I think, you know, in a way, I've always thought that that's probably an evolutionary thing, because if we didn't have that sort of, you know, I'm Superman, nothing can hurt me, we'd probably still be living with our parents. Or we'd probably, going way back, we'd still be living in you know, East Africa. We never would have sort of gone up and down the coasts and things like that. The frontal lobes are responsible for self-regulation, judgment, reasoning, all the things that most of us value highly. And what happens is the limbic areas mature before the frontal lobes do. So that difference in maturational timing results in impulsive decisions or actions, disregarded consequences, and emotional responses to things. And I think, you know, Dr. Favero gave some very good examples of that. So, from animal studies, generally adolescent animals are less sensitive to the adverse effects of alcohol, and they're more sensitive to the social facilitation. So that may explain why, you know, young people like alcohol and other drugs, and they don't have the hangovers and things like that. So they don't have the fewer immediate negative side effects. So, trying to keep us going here. What happens is, you know, you're being bombarded with tons and tons of, you know, numbers, you know, this percentage, that percentage. You know, between 10 and 20% of all alcohol in the U.S. is consumed, you know, by underage. 90% of that alcohol is binge drinking. Where does it come from? There are the CDC sponsors a ton of different, you know, programs and surveys and things like that. There are other national surveys. I'm just going to move on from these things and just sort of give you an idea that there's a ton of data out there. The CDC has numerous programs. The CDC is truly a great organization. You know, if you have a question, you call them up 3 in the morning and they will talk to you. And if they don't know the answer, they will wake up one of their subject matter experts if they feel that's appropriate. I mean, they're just the greatest organization, really, really nice people. And as the doc used to know, he said, they've got the big brains. I mean, they really are smart. So, I mean, they're doing a ton of stuff in the way of programs. There are other, you know, federal, international, government agencies. And again, you know, there's way more here than I've written down. Other professional nonprofit organizations. So this is, you know, it's a very involving project. It's something that we as a society feel is very important. So drinking levels among youth. Again, I think you've got these figures earlier. The 28% of youth aged 12 to 20 reported drinking, and 19% reported binge drinking, and 37% of 8th graders and 72% of 12th graders have tried alcohol. And again, 50% of 8th graders and 44% of it drank within the past month. So I mean, the numbers are out there. Again, I don't know if you've sort of been kind of tired of all these numbers. I mean, we just know the numbers are high. If someone wants, I can, let them have this PowerPoint things. So why do teens drink? Well, it's glamorous. And, maybe it reduces stress, either by its effect or by being accepted in a group. And adolescents feelings of alienation, increased sociability, and altered mood, and all these kinds of things. Again, there's nothing there that we don't already know. Again, young people like to experiment. They say it's out there. Let's what's that going to do? Let's try that. And it's important that they often don't see the link between the actions today and the consequences tomorrow. And they have a tendency to feel indestructible and immune to all problems. And sometimes, most times, teens, experiment and they stop. But obviously, some don't. And one of the questions is, well, who's at higher risk for those? And we can talk about that in a minute. So the shifts through adolescence, we've got the transitions that we talked about, stress may increase, as we move up in the high school or the school system, and more is expected of us. And then there are some unique personality traits. I had one child who was really out there. I mean, she would just go and try anything. So, what happened was I had to sort of slow her down and sit on her and work things through. Whereas my son was a little more tentative, and him I had to encourage and push. So, we all have these, issues, these tendencies built into us. So, if there are histories of behavior problems or history of family conflict or alcohol problems in the family, those are things to be thinking about and aware of when you're deciding, do you want to intervene? So what other things? Family history of substance abuse, children who are depressed, those who have low self-esteem, those who feel like they don't fit in or they're out of the mainstream are all very, very important, to think about when you're thinking about, is someone at risk? Warning signs, they can, the physical, I mean, it's being fatigued, unwell, they talked about the red eyes, the excessive use of eye drops, rapid weight loss, those kinds of things. What about emotional? If you had someone who was being very calm and level, and all of a sudden becomes antsy, irritable, all those kinds of things, that's a possibility that there is something going on in their lives. What about the family situation? Are they withdrawing from the family? School, is there, were they a good student and all of a sudden they're not interested in school? Are there absences? Are they getting into fights, these kinds of things? Are they quitting their extracurricular activities? And then from a social point of view, who are they hanging out with? Are they hanging out with people who, are less interested in, standard home and school activities? Are they missing classes? Are they hanging out in places that, surprise you? We had this lovely time spent on dress, music, those kinds of things. And the other thing, are they coming up with unknown sources of income? Those are all things that should at least, raise some flags and ask you to look into things. Now, those signs can also be issues with other problems other than alcohol and substance abuse. We've talked about drinking and driving. I don't think I want to labor that anymore. Consequences of underage drinking, legal issues, school issues, physical health issues, memory issues. Again, I think you've all heard plenty of that. And then the issue of brain development, which I think is, I think we need more data to really fine-tune that. Looking at students who are drunk, if you look over here, these are the kids who get mostly A's, 63%, and as the grades decline, we get a higher percentage of them who have ever drunk. And I think the interesting thing again is that maybe some, the alcohol, or maybe those people who are struggling are seeking out alcohol to self-medicate. And again, current binge drinking, the numbers are quite a bit lower for the ones who get, the A students versus the people who are struggling going on the rear. Again, looking at consequences, if you look at the number of ER visits in the U.S., and I think these numbers were 2,000, if I remember correctly. Anyway, alcohol alone, 18 to 20, 82,000. And it's interesting, the number is much higher than alcohol and combination of drugs. It's more than double that. And then if you look at the 12 to 17-year age group, it's more than double for alcohol versus alcohol and substance. I'm sorry, I got the years wrong. We all know that young people who are doing academically well, generally there's a linkage between that and their physical health. So, we've all had the kids who, they don't get fed at home, they come in, and they're hungry and they can't concentrate. Again, alcohol substance use, does affect that. And again, if there's a fall off, you can't get drug and alcohol use. So academic success is an excellent indicator for the overall well-being of the youth and a primary predictor of determinant of alcohol, adult health outcomes too, which I think is very important. When I've talked to, for example, women or teenagers about teenage pregnancy, the true answer is that if a teenage woman gets pregnant, the guy is gone. He's not going to love her forever. He's gone. She's going to raise that child by herself. And generally, single mothers are poor. There are rare exceptions, but for the most part, single mothers are poor. And what happens is that while being wealthy will not make you happy, being poor is going to make you unhappy. So why should we condemn people to a life of unhappiness? So many of the schools are embedding health into their educational environments, and I think Marksville City Schools is doing a great job. Drinking and driving, I think we've already sort of beaten that one. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among those between ages 14 and 25. One study says 37% of 8th grade females in Grand County report attempting suicide, compared with 11% who did not drink. Pretty impressive, really.
Yeah.
In 8th grade, I think.
Yeah.
Kids.
I have an 8th grader at home.
You have to have a chat with them. What else, Donna? So sexual assault we talked about briefly. Again, it's an issue. That's the same figures as on that previous slide. So these are all complications of alcohol use. High-risk sex is one. We have an STI clinic at the health department. We see people who have had risky sex with multiple partners, unprotected sex, resulting in unwanted pregnancies, sexually transmitted illnesses. And generally the risk is related to the quantity of alcohol consumed. Interestingly enough, probably if intercourse is increased by drinking enough sufficiently to impair judgment, but decreased by higher amounts. And I assume that means that one of them is passed out, or presumably the male is passed out. Binge drinking we talked about. Does anyone know about the UVA's 4th year, 5th? You heard about that? Apparently there's a tradition for, I think, the homecoming game in your 4th year at UVA, you're supposed to drink a 5th of alcohol. And usually they try, I think, from what I understand, try and get it in before the the game starts. So you start at 8 in the morning or something like that. Anyway, so 18 people have been killed at UVA from the 4th year 5th since 1990. And I guess you could argue, well, that's just over 1 year. That's not too bad. I'm teasing.
I'm thinking that's pretty bad for something nobody has to do.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Anyway,
You don't have to do that.
you know, the good thing is that a lot of the, the males, the big males who've been drinking a lot over their years have a good tolerance to that level of alcohol. But I don't think I could have, even my prime, I don't think I
I remember when my oldest daughter went to school at William and Mary. She had never had anything to drink, and she was pledging a sorority. And she didn't get in the sorority she really wanted to get in. And afterwards, like the next week, when they actually started the sorority she really wanted to get in, she found out their like initiation was chugging a bottle of champagne. And one of the girls ended up in the emergency room because she was like, my daughter had never had anything to drink before. And you can't drink a whole bottle of champagne in 5 minutes and not make yourself really. So anyway, she said she was glad that didn't end up being the one she got into because she'd have probably been a statistic.
Well, as we said earlier, women generally are going to have more effects than males do based on body build and fat distribution, and then carbonated beverages are going to get all that the way it's done. So here's an interesting figure. Youth who start drinking before age 15 are 5 times more likely to develop alcohol dependence or abuse later in life than those who begin drinking after age 21. So, sometimes I think of these things similar to the abstinence-only programs, which there really hasn't been a whole lot of science that has shown that abstinence-only works. But I guess if, peer pressure, happens for bad things, but it also happens in, those kids we have at the front of the room up there, I mean, they selected themselves to be here, but there's also that peer pressure for them to stand up and say, no, I'm never drunk or whatever. But I suppose even if, we can delay onset of drinking for a period of time, we're probably doing something positive based on these numbers.
You just put your head around it.
That's
Just about that.
Okay. I've got 2 more slides.
Good job. You got that.
So I did. I felt kind of upset, but for you folks that we sort of got off to a crummy start. Anyway, so under Virginia law, if parents give alcohol to their children or the neighbor's children, and something bad happens, you may be criminally liable and civil liability. So be aware of that, and that's also something that you can, if you're counseling parents, you can press on with them. Now this is the last little thing I've got going here. I think this is kind of interesting. There's one study where they looked at parental alcohol use, general parenting practices, alcohol-specific socialization. So those are what they're defining as activities parents undertake specifically to manage or prevent their children's drinking behavior, especially during the initiation phase of drinking. And what that means is, you're providing alcohol-specific rules and you're showing disapproval of the adolescent's drinking. Now, I think that what you can do is you can throw disapproval in many ways, some positive and some, negative to the whole, the parent-child relationship, and talking about alcohol use in the home and things like that. So what happens is that these were the results that they came to, and I'm not sure if I like them, but I mean they are what they are. So if you provide clear-cut alcohol-specific rules to youngsters who are either not drinking or in the process of drinking initiation, who are not drinking, what happens is it lowers the likelihood of them drinking. Okay, so if you get to what I said earlier this morning, you want to get to them early. So if you do those things early, they're less likely to start drinking. On the other hand, if they're already drinking and you set these things up, it actually has a negative impact on their alcohol consumption. So that they're by that they mean that they actually it's not going to affect their income, alcohol take it all. So it's a negative effect on changing their alcohol consumption is what this is. That's not really worded that clearly, but you get the point I'm trying to make. So again, I mean, I think it stresses you want to get in there early and often. Okay. Now, again, that doesn't mean you can't approach older and younger adolescents who are drinking and in a constructive and positive way. But we don't own those kids, unfortunately, at that age. We have to negotiate more with them. So, let's say, I'm sorry that we sort of got off to a little bit of a chaotic start. This is just my last little public health thing. Don't seatbelts. Really, I mean, I see so many kids where there's seatbelts and they fly out of the cars and they end up with injuries they never should have had. So, anyway, thank you for your time and your patience. Are there any questions